Hi everyone, this is the Grand Duke Dmitri YouTube diary series, and thank you for watching today. And I hope you're ready to go back 110 years in time to a cold, very cold winter day in the little town of Gatchina. Well, I don't know that it was little. It wasn't a big city. It was about 45 kilometers, I think, south of Petrograd, and really a part of the Petrograd metropolitan area. I guess if you stretch that. I don't know. I'm babbling. Anyway, that's where we're going to be. A recap for the previous diary entry. I'm just going to adjust this a little bit. It's too much. Okay, well, forget it. Yeah, a recap to the previous diary entry. Dmitri sort of looked back on the party that he'd been to the night before, thinking about that it was interesting, but there were just too many people. And then, after taking a long nap, because he'd been at the party till 7 a.m., he went and visited Ducky, his cousin Kirill's wife, Grand Duchess Victoria Fyodorovna. And so that was interesting. They would be real adversaries later on in 1921, but they seem to have been friends in 1915. And, you know, of all the members of the imperial family that Dmitri could have been spending time with and going to visit, it's interesting that it was Ducky that had that honor. Our cast today is exclusively Brasova and Co. She has this little mobile entourage that go with her everywhere, apparently, including one of them who I thought was Grand Duke Michael's adjutant. So why is he always with Natalia? Why is he always with Michael's wife? Well, did Michael want him to keep an eye on her? Possibly. I don't know. Anyway, here we go. It's the 23rd of February / 8th March. Dmitri, as usual, gives us his address, Nevsky 41. It's -12 in Petrograd, clear and a little windy. I got up around 9:30. I had coffee in bed. My nose is better, but it's still pretty painful, especially the right nostril, which runs constantly. I took the 10:45 train to Gatchina to see Brasova. I wanted to sleep so bad in the car and the train. Johnson met me there, and we went together to Natalia Sergeyevna's dacha. She herself was apparently very pleased to see me. I also found her girlfriend there, that same Maria Nikolaevna, and she was in a good mood too. We lunched at 11:30, then sat and talked. They wanted to go for a walk, but it was too cold for me, -16. I took the 10:45 train home. Brasova, Maria Nikolaevna, and Johnson came as well. They drove me home when we arrived. I took a nap, then dined at the club and spent the whole evening there. I played a lot of billiards. I did much better today. I didn't notice this before. He says he dined at the club. They had all taken the 10:45 train home. Didn't they have dinner in Gatchina? Yeah, he doesn't use the word for supper. He uses the word for dinner, but maybe he just had a snack at the club. I don't know. That's weird. Okay, so he's very tired. I'm not sure exactly why, because, you know, he usually gets up between 10 and 11, so he didn't have to get up that much earlier than usual. You know, obviously this was an arranged visit. They wanted him to come in the morning. He probably would have preferred a little later, knowing him as we do, but off he went in the car, in the train, and he wanted to sleep. But, you know, it's not that far away. He wouldn't have had time to even really doze off, I suppose. And he writes that Brasova, that she was apparently glad to see him. That is classic Dmitri. If you watch the 1906-1907 video, that videos, that there's always this element of doubt whether he's just, just putting it in there because that's his habit, or whether he really did feel a little secure. The word apparently appears all the time in these instances. She seemed to, or apparently she was, or they were, or he was happy to see me. All right, maybe he was still a little worried after that argument of the other day, but overall I would say, this is just typical of him. So the rest of them wanted to take a walk. That sounds pretty crazy. I think I'm with Dmitri on this one. Minus 16 degrees and they want to take a walk? Okay, and he's there for about 12 hours. So what did they do all this time? I got the strong impression when he was in Moscow and they were in Moscow that he was interested in pursuing her. But, she's always got these people around her. It's pretty hard to get her off alone. And maybe that's by design. The girlfriend, he never once identified by name in Moscow, but now we know that her name was Maria Nikolaevna, although that's not helpful to me at the moment since there's no surname. But I suppose if I went and read some of the things that have been written about Natalia Brasova, I could probably find out who the girlfriend was, maybe. Johnson, let's see. So he's there for about 12 hours. It's a short, laconic diary entry. We don't know what they did or how he felt about it. He doesn't say, well, it was a bore, so that's promising anyway. And they all take the train together and they drive him home. So apparently he hadn't arranged for anyone to pick him up at the station. And with Natasha, it's always a they. They drove me home. Okay. But he sleeps a little, but he's just not going to stay at home. As long as he's awake, he's not going to stay at home. And he has to go to this sort of anchor point for him every day, which is the yacht club. So that's interesting too. So even though it's so late, he goes there. Where did all this restlessness come from? I mean, he's kind of a funny fellow, isn't he? I've been so immersed in all of his writings for years now, but it's still hard to figure him out. Where does the restlessness come from? It's very consistent. Where does the seeming loneliness come from? He's a Grand Duke. People like him. He could, obviously he has lots of opportunities to socialize and he takes advantage of them, but there's just this sort of inner existential, isolation. And so it's almost in this weird way, like an oxymoron. He's kind of a public recluse. He goes out, he goes to parties, he spends time with people, but, there's just not a sense that he's connecting. And that does get better. I don't think 1915 was a good year for him. You could do the modern thing and speculate on all of these diagnoses with initials, OCD, PTSD, ADHD, but yeah, 1915 was a hard year for him, and even though these are short diary entries, and it would be wrong to read too much into them because, his diaries when he was an adolescent are much longer and livelier. Now we have these really matter-of-fact ones, and then we'll go back to having the really intimate ones later. Anyway, what do we have next time? Well, an interesting visit to Michin this time. Ducky is off in Warsaw, so Dmitri is going to go see Michin. Grand Duchess Maria Pavlovna the Elder, and Grand Duchess Maria Pavlovna the Younger will be returning and doing her best to get her brother up and around, get him out of bed before noon. Okay, so that's fun stuff. There's good news and bad news. The good news is that 1915 continues until November. So we have the better part of the year. The bad news is that this is the end of Dmitri's vacation. He'll be going back to his military duties, back to headquarters, and he will not have as much time to write. So as short and matter of fact as these diaries are, the later ones are even more so. And so we will definitely be doing more than one a day, because they are really short and they just kind of mention a few things. This is not to say that there aren't interesting things in them about who he's spending time with, for instance, but yeah, it's going to be quite a bit different. And we'll be able to go through those pretty quickly and then decide where to go from there. Anyway, that's it for today. I'll say, the thumbnail, I have no reason to believe, the thumbnail picture, I have no reason to believe that it was taken in Gatchina. It was just kind of a nice picture of Dmitri in a domestic environment, kind of relaxed, leaning on a piano. So that is if I use that thumbnail. Maybe I won't. I also have one, it's cropped so much that it's hardly worth using. But on the other hand, it's a nice one. It's one of the few I have of him with a nice in the sense that, you see both of their faces and they're sitting very casually together, of him and Grand Duke Michael. So maybe I'll use this one. I guess I should have thought of that at the beginning before we reached this point. Anyway, whichever one is attached to the video, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.